Hello everyone, welcome to this video. I'm going to talk about some Japanese honeysuckle. It's an invasive species. It's found all over Missouri and many other places outside of Missouri. I work in Missouri and so I see it a lot, and I see a lot more of it now than I did when I started my career 25 years ago. I used to not find it out in isolated, secluded Ozark country far away from habitation, but now I do. It's everywhere across Missouri. This property is over 1,000 acres of old strip mine, and the soils don't look anything like normal soils. You can see there's a pit here, a strip pit, and then this is a tailing pile that's really long, which is normal for these reclaimed strip mines. And there's Japanese honeysuckle all over the property. And the soils, like I said, don't look anything like what you would expect soils. The soils are like little pieces of rock, shale, flat rock, that are heavily compacted and compressed with each other. And so what I noticed when I was working on this property, I surveyed the timber and wrote a management plan for it to do some wildlife habitat management and to map the invasive species and try to figure out what we want to do as far as managing the property. And what I noticed was the ground was solid like a rock. But then when I walked on the Japanese honeysuckle, the top couple inches of the soil were more fluffy. I would jump up and down. And the longer I jumped, the more I would compress the soil under my feet. And it wasn't long before, after jumping for a moment, a minute or two, the soil would get really hard. So the Japanese honeysuckle, I noticed it was rehabilitating, it was restoring the soil on the top. And it has fibrous roots, it doesn't have a taproot. It's got these fibrous roots. They grow just in the top inch or two of the soil, maybe a little deeper. It's going to really depend on the soil type, how deep they go, but they're generally shallow roots. And you can see how thick the vine is above the ground. Well, the roots are like that below the ground. So on this reclaimed mine site where the soil is like a compressed rock, this is breaking that up. And so in this case, the Japanese honeysuckle is regenerating the soil. Another thing that it's doing is all this thick tangle is catching the leaves and holding the leaves in place. And that's huge for soil regeneration. There's a lot of different microbes that are hanging out in that leaf layer in the O horizon that are breaking down the leaf layer and turning it into nutrients and making it available for plants. So those are two big things. It's working in the soil and then it's working right on top of the soil. And I'm going to dig in the soil here in this video and just give you a look. This is a pretty heavy infestation. Okay. You can see there we've got a lot of broken up leaf litter, and a lot of that is from last year, small broken pieces. And then we've got the year before that. And it's kind of, granular and soft, and I can kind of move it around a little bit and dig my fingers in there. There's a bigger piece of shale. A lot of the shale flecks that made up the soil were really tiny. You could fit like 20 or 50 of them on a fingernail. Okay, so you can see how fluffy that soil right there is. And I didn't get very deep, but I did get kind of deep. And then I'm just showing here's a bush honeysuckle. And it's got fibrous roots with a little bit of a taproot. And it goes a little deeper. And so these two are working together to restore the soil in this location. Okay, now I'm going to show you a site where there is no Japanese honeysuckle. And this is pretty standard across the entire property. There's a lot of shade, so there's not a lot of vegetation growing. But really, it's because the soil is so wrecked. It's compacted. There's not a lot of organic matter. There's not a lot of porosity. It's really high bulk density. And you can see we've got leaves from this year. This is the leaf drop from this season. And I'll dig in here. And underneath this season's leaves, you'll see that there's not much going on. I'm going to fast forward it. I'm getting a little impatient. Okay, pull that away and bam. Where's last year's leaves or the year before? They're gone. Oh, I found some right there. Just a little piece of like older material. Not very much. And then the soil is really hard. You can see I'm like scratching it and it's not moving. Oh, there we go. I busted off a big piece. And that's about as deep as I can get right there. So it's not a very hospitable place for a plant to grow. And I wasn't I had no idea until I was out there and I hopped up and down on this, and it was like hopping on pavement. And then I hopped up and down on this, and it was like hopping on like a little thin inflatable camping mattress or something. So there you have it. I know it's controversial, but the Japanese honeysuckle is restoring this degraded soil on this site. Now, does that mean that I'm going to recommend that you plant Japanese honeysuckle to restore degraded soil? Heck no. It's vicious. It's one of my most unfavorite invasive species. We can get rid of it, but it takes more work. I'm not going to recommend that people plant it. But what I do notice is that these invasive species show up on degraded soils. And so there's a clue there. There's a message there for us, for our thick skulls, that maybe these invasive species are just following us around trying to repair the damage that we made. Just maybe. I know that's an out of the box thought, but as an ecologist walking around and noticing that on degraded soils is where we see most of the invasive species, it starts ringing bells, and you see it so many times and you're like, okay, man, there's what's going on here? Why are these degraded soils so attractive to these invasive species? And then if we look at other species like Lespedeza, it goes away once the soil gets restored. So once you restore the soil, maybe this Japanese honeysuckle will go away. I think we need to run some experiments and find out for sure. And all you people out there that are doing management and out there looking around finding these things, what do you think? Do you notice that it goes away once you restore the soil? Has anybody done that? Lespedeza goes away. Cedar goes away once you restore the soil. And so I'm curious about this Japanese honeysuckle. I'm hope to live another 20 years, and I'll come back and look at this site. Because it was restoring the site, and because it was so much everywhere, and we're talking about 1,000 acres. I actually recommended that he just let the Japanese honeysuckle alone because it's the only thing I saw that was restoring the soil this good on his property. And so um, he wasn't really looking forward to doing all that work, and he couldn't understand how it was even possible because it's so overwhelming. And I initially thought, oh, yeah, we'll figure it out. And for the first time in my professional career, I walked away and said, I think it's better if you just leave it. And he agreed. And so it's a win win in this case. That's not a recommendation that I ever make. And I can't say that I want to make that recommendation again. But these are absolutely the worst soils. It's mine reclamation, and it has not been reclaimed. There's still miles and miles and miles of tailing piles with no organic matter. And so in this case, like I said, we're gonna we're gonna let the Japanese honeysuckle do its thing. And once it's in the shade, we don't see much of it on this property. It's just in these sunny spots. So, maybe this soil will get restored, some shrubs and some trees will grow up. Of course, the Japanese honeysuckle will grow up with them and cover them. But maybe once we get some shade on the ground from the height, it'll lose some of its abundance and density. Like I said, hopefully I'll be around in 20 years to see. We This is a story yet to be told. But the real story here is soil regeneration. Like I said, I see these invasive species on degraded sites mostly. We can find them in high quality natural ecosystems with a lot of native plants. Yeah, the invasive species can definitely get into those systems, especially when the neighbors are full of the invasive species providing all the seed stock. But I think in a lot of those high quality native ecosystems, you know, the Japanese honeysuckle seed gets in there, just one or two seeds, and I wonder if they just can't hang, they can't tolerate it. And so you need some critical threshold to be met before you start seeing the invasive species take over these natural ecosystems. Now, every invasive species is different, so um, and every site is different. And that's the thing about ecology is there are no absolutes. If I was to say, yeah, Japanese honeysuckle does this, this, and this, we can go to another site and see it doesn't do that on this site. So variability is the rule. And I think that's why I'm sharing this video is to just show some more variability and provide a little deeper understanding of the Japanese honeysuckle. All right, thanks. Hope you liked this video. Please subscribe. And if you got any comments or want to have a conversation about this, go ahead and leave a comment. And I hope this stimulates you to get curious in the field and get curious with your colleagues. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.